Hey guys! So in the last episode, we covered part of Dr. Mahesh Sharma's book on Chamba Kingdom, right? And I am not going to read chapter 1 on screen because I'll let you know why. Because he really does a funny thing in his historical writing. He inverts like the mainstream history and then the sideline history. In Chinese historiography, there's 正史 and there's 秘史. So like the official history, and then other people can write the secret history. So they exist, but when you are a ruler, you only look at the 正史. So I was approaching his book as like an official history, but I realized he's not writing an official history. He is going all the way off. And I was just face palming myself while reading it. Like, are you safe, Dr. Sharma? Are you okay? Like writing all these really subversive things in the main text. Like in English academia, at least I think people would be like, okay, I'll put some subversive thing like human sacrifice in the footnotes, right? And no, Dr. Sharma's just gonna put it in the first part of the first chapter in his book. Yeah, you know, the Rajputs sacrificed shepherd women in order to please whoever they wanted to please for rain, etc. Jai Indra. I have an Indra on the wall right here. I drew it so I didn't have to be sacrificed. Back to Dr. Sharma. So, chapter 1, he talks a lot about other things as well, such as the different rulers and how to understand who succeeded who, and the rivalries between like the Jammu kingdom and the Chamba kingdom. He doesn't really go into intermarriage, inter-alliances, etc., like those aspects. He is a very learned person. He has published articles since the 90s. And I don't know how he kept his mojo this long, because he is from that area and it's not a very like intellectually engaging in the sense of like the Western sense place. So I don't know who he was talking to all this time while he was conducting these really subversive histories, because the Rajputs still rule to a great extent in that area. So like they still have an edge over Gaddi women, even if they're not sacrificing them at this point. I'll give you one example from like my own personal experience. So I stayed at one hotel in Himachal Pradesh. And the main muscle guy, the main like security bouncer type, who was also moonlighting as the manager of the hotel, he actually has a Gaddi spouse, and they are considered an intercaste marriage. And his spouse lives in Dalhousie, which is like 100 kilometers, 1 hour or so like away from where he works. And she's just supposed to stay at home and take care of their baby boy while he becomes the breadwinner, and then he can do whatever he wants, as long as he's bringing bread home. So that is like the dynamics between this Rajput Gaddi intercaste marriage. And this is in the 21st century. So I'm just like, Dr. Sharma, I don't know if I should contextualize what you are writing right now, because as you know, in the US recently, academia has been fighting this huge war over, should we contextualize anti-Semitism? The politically correct answer is yes. But if we're also sacrificing humans on the daily basis, then I don't know which one's worse, human sacrifice or words of anti-Semitism at this point. So reading Dr. Sharma's book is also like, it's like, okay, you're not a politician. You're not actively involved in the democratic politics of Himachal Pradesh, but you are making very, very serious allegations against these ruling clans that are active in politics. So I'm just super worried for Dr. Sharma. That's why I'm not going to read the first chapter. I will read the second chapter for you guys, because that's where he gets more like chronological. So he has like a timeline to follow. Otherwise, like he is all over the time space continuum in the first chapter. So I'm just warning you guys, like I cannot jump along with him and not self-implode in the process of, trying to translate to you guys in the Western Euro context of what he is talking about. A Western Himalayan kingdom. We have Charpatna, the stone worshipped. I'll show you guys the stone worshipped. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Placed in the 14th century by the Registrar Antiquities Himachal Pradesh government that is worshipped in the portal of Charpat. Chapter 2. The State and the Portal of Charpat, Small Shrine, Big Symbol. The genealogy of the Chamba royal house ends abruptly around 1645. According to this genealogy, Sahila Varman, the ruler of Chamba 10th century, was a devout Shaivite and a yogic practitioner. In his reign, the ever-pervasive 84 Siddhas appeared and gave him a boon of sons. So they granted him his wish to have sons. Quote, the Jogi Charpati went with the king. Together with Yugakara and his 9 other excellent sons, the king defeated the Kshatriyas in battle and founded on the banks of Iravati the town of Champa, which was before adorned with champaka trees and guarded by the goddess, Jaimatati, goddess Champavati, having slain the buffalo and others. On the same spot, there were also various lingas, so the Shiva shape Murti lingas at the confluence of the Shalika with the Iravati, and at the confluence of the Kunala at the confluence of Shalika and Saraswati. Having brought these to the town with the consent of Charpat, the king named Sahila, the master of senses, established Gupta and Chandrashwara, Kumeshwara, and other temples. Having finally established a sanctuary of Charpat, after he had caused an image of Lakshmi's lord to be made and set up reverently, he installed Yugakara as his successor in the town of Champa and went to Charpati to devote himself to asceticism. The 84 wizards were also with him. Quoted from Antiquities of Chamba, Volume 1. There is certain desperation in the last section of the royal Chamba genealogy before it abruptly ends. The trend is also witnessed in the last grants made after the restoration of the Chamba ruling dynasty. Even though Vaishnavism became the pronounced religion of Chamba, the significance attached to the local centers is indicative of the conscious effort made by the rulers to reach out to their subjects. Clearly, the state was striving to create the consent to rule by appropriating the local symbols as the instruments of legitimation. This dichotomy between legitimation and the consent to rule is significant to understand the process of consolidation. The Sanskritic religion, particularly Vaishnavism, was instrumental in fostering an association with the subcontinental cosmos, while the local symbols were more concerned with the core area in Chamba. The prominence accorded to the popular symbols also aimed at reassuring the people that even though the state expressed its association with Vaishnavism, it was sensitive to the belief of the people as well. This expression is emphasized in the grants made to Charpatnath. We shall also contextualize the relationship that was fostered among various tiers of religious centers. The context of the documents, quote, The Kaula Panchadharma of these places has been written confirmed. It is undertaken that the dynasty of Sri Raja Brij Raj Dev will nurture this religion. The dynasty of Sri Raja Raj Singh will collect revenue from these parganas, districts. Whatever be the lapse in the personal service of the dynasty of Sri Raja Raj Singh by the dynasty of Sri Raja Birj Raj, they will keep aside this religion. Document C23, Buri Singh Museum at Chamba, translated as document 1.1 in the present collection. In 1784, the ruler of Chamba issued a land grant to the Jogis of Charpatnat. The grant of Charpat, who is in the extreme other end of Chamba, be renewed for Samvat 60, Roman time, Christian time 1784 CE, to one Jogi named Gulabnath. Like earlier years, whatever is the landed ownership of Charpat, the same revenue share of the state in the new harvest is renewed in the name of Gulabnath. We shall continue the practice of earlier years, namely providing some vessels to the Tana, a share in the harvest, and a share from the worship at the portal of Mahakali, as was done earlier. Jai Mata Di, Jai Mata Di. In many ways, both these documents, which are part of the study and produced subsequently in entirety, affirm the relationship between the Jogis of Charpat and the Kaula tradition in Jammu and Kashmir, while the royal genealogy tries to establish him in the early 10th century Chamba. The conjunctions are contingent upon the fact that Charpatnath, an alchemist or Rasheshwara Siddha, is associated with Rajasthan, Eastern India, Nepal, Tibet, or Chamba, with the prevailing traditions varying from Kashmiri Kala, Buddhist Vajrayana, the Hatha Yogic and Tantric practices of Matsyendranath and Goraksanath. Chronologically, the tradition of Charpat varies from the early 10th century CE, as in Chamba, to the 14th to 16th centuries. His alleged writings or stray compilations of sayings are spatially spread. These are in different languages and dialects, much like other writings attributed to the Nath Siddha tradition. The belief in Chamba is one such reflection, though the documentary evidence starts only in the late 18th century. Charpati and rulers of Chamba. From the southern countries, Siddha Jogis came. Come, Dudu Shiva, come in the evening. Come and be our guest tonight. 9 men give you the offerings of Nawala. O Dudu, let me repay your debt. Dance, O Dudu, dance with your locks swaying. Dance, O Dudu, dance. Song sung during the ritual of Nawala in Chamba. Dudu Natseya, Dudu Natseya, Jatavo Karaeo. Dudu Natseya, Jatavo Karaeo. Dudu Natseya, Jatavo Karaeo. Ganga Gora. Dudu Natseya, Jatavo Karaeo. That is an example of a Noala. According to the medieval Vamshalvali genealogy of the Chamba rulers, Charpatnath is closely associated with the state formation in the 10th century. Just like the song sung in the local Shaivite ritual, as quoted above, the royal genealogy records that along with other Siddhas, Charpat arrived at the court of King Sahila Varman, who is placed in the late half of the 10th century CE. It further emphasizes the influence of the Siddha by stating that the king, having achieved the objective of creating a stable state, abdicated the throne in favor of his son and set out on the path of asceticism along with Charpat. Presumably, Charpatnath is the same as mentioned in the Buddhist Siddhacharya tradition as Charpati, and somewhat more elaborately in the in the Kanpata or knot tradition as an alchemist, or Raseshwara Siddha, the disciple of Gorakhsanath. Obviously, it is assumed that he visited the western Himalayan state of Chamba to look for herbs in his quest for immortality. There is, however, no mention of Charpatnath in the numerous charters issued by the Chamba rulers until the compiling of the royal genealogy, which ends abruptly in the 1640s. Subsequently, a shrine was erected to Charpatnath, and its Jogi priests received the first grant in 1783. According to the Tanki number 522 provided along with the genealogical table in the first regular land settlement of Chamba, the Jogi priests claimed that they belonged to the Saroha Gotra clan and Jogi caste. As a caste group, the Jogis accepted matrimony as the basis of succession. Nevertheless, the ascetic Jogis differed from them such that they refused to abide by the norms of the householders, and the succession to the seat of the preceptor was by an election within the fraternity. So I think what he's trying to say is that these ascetic people didn't want to follow the people who they were being invited by. So for example, if I invited somebody to like do rituals here and do magic here, they're not going to eat with me and they're not going to like stay in this house. I guess they would sleep outside, and then they would vote amongst themselves who would be the next ritual master instead of like consulting me. That is what I'm getting from this. A successor was chosen from the group of chelas, or ascetic pupil student, who were all defined by a fictive kinship term, gurbais, or sectarian brothers, descendants of a common guru. It may also be noted that the suffix nat after the name of Jogis implied that they were adherents of the Nat Siddha ascetics, a Hatha yogic tradition created by merging 12 Shaivite Hatha yogic sects by Gorakhsanath. In this case, the members owed allegiance to Charpatnath. It is doubtful if the shrine was terribly prosperous or central in the consideration of the Chamba state. Renewal charters provided the shrine with some customary cess, mangedi muafi, along with a fixed annuity in cash. It also received offerings made by devotees both in cash and kind, along with contributions made by the royal household on ceremonial and other ritualistic occasions. The tradition of Jogis cut across and fused the narrow sectarian lines between the Kaula tradition of the bordering state of Jammu and the Nat Siddha tradition that was popular in Panjab. It was particularly popular in the peripheral areas of the Chamba state. The construction of marhis, hutment of the Jogis in the pastoral and agrarian rural landscape in the border areas of Jammu and Punjab, particularly in Chura, largely the contested area bordering Jammu and Kashmir, underscores the significance of these cultural outposts in creating a constituency that was drawn into the politico-religious orbit of the state. These centers were the cultural embodiments of local identities that the state itself protected, much like the Deotas, area-specific godlings of the Shimla and Kulu districts. The Jogis of Charpat derived their power by functioning as hinge figures that linked these cultural outposts on the periphery with the state. They bonded the periphery to the nucleus by providing horizontal interlinkages between each of these cultural centers, and itself being vertically linked to them. Indeed, by abandoning ascetic practices, the Jogis lost some of their charisma, and as homemakers they were placed low in the caste hierarchy. Yet, by claiming matrimonial ties with the spectrum of professional castes dotting the rural periphery of the Chamba state, the Jogis influenced a vast, albeit fluid, religious constituency which was bonded by kinship ties. There is a picture of a Siddha meditating inside the Bajnath temple. This is evident from the number of jogis, head of such marhis, hutments, making annual tribute to the Charpat jogis both in cash as well as kind and accepting their sectarian superior status therefore. Such a constituency was politically manipulated even if it remained on the margins of the larger political and social formations in the neighborhood. For instance, the people of Chura oscillated between the hill states of Chamba and Jammu that patronized the dominant Kaula sectarians, so much so that the treaty signed in 1781 between Brijraj Dev of Jammu and Raj Singh of Chamba made a particular point of mentioning this religious constituency of Kaula Dharma in the territory of Chura. They were to be patronized by Jammu, even though the political and territorial control over Chura area was ceded to Chamba. Footnote 6. Mahesh Sharma, State Formation and Cultural Complex in Western Himalaya, Chamba Genealogy and Epigraphs, 700 to 1650. For a general discussion on Kaula practices, see the second part of the canon of the Shaivagama and the Kupchika Tantra of the Western Kaula tradition, published in 1989. For patronage to Kaula practitioners, see 1781 agreement between Raja Brijraj of Jammu and Raj Singh of Chamba. The relations amongst the jogis were not always tension-free, and in the early 1920s, the preeminence of the Charpat jogis was challenged because some of their ritual practices were outside the purview of the jogi rituals in a strict sectarian sense. It may be of some interest to observe that the jogis did not conjure favorable impressions among the colonial and nationalists as well. Their social and ritual practices, shrouded in mystery, were loathed by the advocates or believers of the Sanskritic civilization as a representation of the Indian cultural ethos. Their detractors in this civilizational discourse were the colonial rulers as well, writing before 1920, who had little sympathy for their practices. Buck loathed them as meat-eaters and wine-drinkers, while Oman dubbed them as peripatetic hypocrites and cheats. McLagan revealed their murderous proclivity, and Crook emphasized Mulali's report on Madras to classify them as a criminal tribe. So for those who don't know, the British came to India and they were like, anybody who is not paying taxes the way we want them to is a criminal tribe. Very sad past. It's kind of like how migrants are being treated right now in the United States. It's like they came here like all the other immigrants before them, and just because they came at this particular time, they are going to be kicked around and not given any concern over, and they are classified as a group unto themselves, even though they are related. Some of them are related to people who are already settled here. So that's just how politics works. In a way, they were portrayed as hovering on the margins of society, eroding the social and cultural order. Yet the fact that they effectively controlled the agrarian pastoral mindset comes across forcefully. It was their charismatic control over this constituency that capitulated them, even if marginal, to the forefront of the considerations of the state. The jogis wielded such a powerful influence also because of the hold they had over the minds of the agrarian population. Ostensibly possessed of the siddhis or supernatural powers, the ascetic jogis controlled and fashioned the popular imagination, which is evident from the 1895 reports from the Shimla hill states. Shimla is close to this huge church built by the British and is a major bazaar center point in Himachal Pradesh. Great excitement is being caused among the simple hill folks in some of the villages to the south of Shimla by certain wandering yogi. The man's last reported feat is really something beyond the ordinary. He is said to have burned himself alive on a large pyre in front of a whole wandering village, and then 10 days later to have appeared in the same village alive and unhurt. The hill people firmly believe this story, which they say must be true, as the yogi can give them a detailed account of the topography of heaven. This, of course, settles the matter. It is manifestly impossible for any man to describe heaven unless he has been there to see. So characteristically, like Dr. Sharma, he just leaves this fascinating, totally out of the world thing and moves on without any elaboration on his view. The Kaulas and Jogis. The present selection of documents begins with a treaty signed in 1781 between Brij Rajdev of Jammu and Raj Singh of Chamba. Both the contenders agreed that the personal animosity between the two states should not harm the constituents of the western region of Chamba, who were the followers of the Kaula Panchadharma. So Jammu is west of Chamba, and then there's like the border. The document is interesting as Jammu subtly claimed a foothold in the region that was fiercely contested by these two states by undertaking to nurture the religion. At the same time, it agreed to abdicate its rights to collect revenue, hence recognizing the sovereign claims of Chamba over the territory. So it's like they want Hollywood, but it still belongs to California in terms of tax. So like if California suddenly had like an alien ship parked in the ocean and then said, okay, everyone in Hollywood, like, please help me create an ideology. And then Hollywood's like, yeah, we're going to create an ideology for your new alien tribe. But we still have to pay taxes to the state of California. And the aliens are like, go ahead. No problem. No problemo. The document is critical to appreciate the significance of Charpat and Chamba, the agency through which such diverse religious communities were unified. It is against this backdrop that the documents make more sense, the state of Chamba providing big symbols for the small shrines, keeping them small, however. It is interesting to note that Charpat, for all practical purposes, is mentioned only in the 1640s genealogy, which attributes them a significant role in the early state formation and the construction of the Chamba capital in the 10th century. That Charpat is mentioned in the medieval Vamshavali is significant also because it speaks about the influence that the renouncers exerted in the medieval polity, which historians are now coming to terms with. The Nat Siddhas were particularly associated with the North Indian medieval polity. For example, the Guhilas, as discussed in chapter 1, which I did not cover. Later, Marwar, or as Jakbar records point out, and as Pinch demonstrates, some scholar, I guess, the Mughals as well. So Nazi does influence all these different pre-British / parallel British political rulers, is what he's trying to say. While the scholar Pinch discusses the ascetic warlords and at times their nexus with the state as mercenaries, the hold of the Natsidas over people was more pronounced because of their alleged miraculous powers. And the Siddhis, which they possess. Om Mahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hom. Om Mahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hom. Om Mahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hom. The quest for immortality and power while living, as against the ontological position of spirituality that is empowered in death, attaining moksha or nirvana, which is epitomized in the attainment of 6 to 9 siddhis, in a way define these charismatic Nat Siddhas. Footnote 14. The Padmavat, written by Malik Muhammad Jaisi, has been used here because he is a contemporary of the genealogy process. Himself a mystic, he enumerated these siddhis as 1. Anima, or the power to become infinitesimally small. Mahima, acquire gigantic proportions. Lagima, become light-weighted. Garima, become really heavy. Prapti, to reach really far. Ichatva, obtaining desired object. Prakmaya, obtaining fame/sovereignty. Vachitiva, the power to subjection. And lastly, the power to conquer sense perception. These range and nomenclature of these siddhis or powers changed over time, but continue to emphasize the control of these adepts over the material and spiritual spheres that lead to awe and fear, often expressed in the idiom of respect or reverence. This was translated by A.G. Sharaf in Calcutta, 1944. If you guys haven't watched the Wes Anderson film, he also talks about how one European man gained siddhis after he encountered a Muslim man in a circus. So the Muslim man performed this huge feat where he could guess whatever was behind his blindfold. And he got to know him because he would go to every hospital where he was performing, the city where he was performing, and then have doctors bandage his eyes so then it would be medically proven that he could not see. But he could with his city powers. And then after that, plot spoiler, the European trusted this guy and he followed him into the jungle where he saw where he got his initiation through similar yogis. And then he also acquired the power to see through cards because he wanted to play poker and then win money. And then so at some point he was just like, okay, all of this is like not really what I want in my life. I'm over greed. I'm over the material world. So he just started using his powers for donating to orphanages. And then he would dress up as different characters and go to the major casinos all around the world after he obtained this power to see through poker cards. And he would win, and then occasionally he would lose on purpose so that people wouldn't think that he's cheating. So if you don't believe in siddhis, like some of these colonial officials, obviously you're gonna think, yeah, he's cheating in poker. But like, yeah, so that was the beautiful Wes Anderson film recently on Netflix. Go check it out if you haven't. It is this sway that paved way for their ideological penetration and hold over the northern Indian polity as recounted in the Chamba genealogy. This is also an index of their popular appeal, where fear and awe inspired by their powers, the control over the material and the spiritual, was often spoken in the idiom of respect and reverence. How these siddhas were regarded may be gauged from the mid-16th century account of Malik Muhammad Jaisi, written about the same time when the Chamba genealogy was in the process of composition. Quote, "The siddha is one who feels neither hunger nor confusion of thought. He whom the Lord has made a siddha in this world, none can recognize him whether he be revealed or disguised. A siddha wanders fearlessly by night and by day. Where he has fixed his eyes, there he approaches. A siddha is so fearless as regards to his own life that when he sees a sword, he bows his neck."